Hey Brad,
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great.
Terrific.
How are things under the mountain? It's a good time
Uh,
of the year up there.
it's a really good time, and we've got some really good weather coming in, so that's awesome. And then we just started Last Bear Standing under the mountain, so the kids are pretty fired up about that.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah, Landon was telling me when I brought him back that I was telling him there are few places in the world that are as fun as like that campus from the end of winter long weekend till the end of the school year.
Absolutely. Best time
Uh,
on campus is definitely the spring.
yeah, for sure. All right, we're just gonna get right into it. Yeah. So for you, I've seen with a lot of coaches I've interviewed, right? Like I'm assuming this thought of coaching prep hockey started when you were playing prep hockey. Is that right?
Definitely. And well, I knew that I'd always, just in the back of my mind, I went to Exeter in 10th grade, so 10th, 11th, and 12th. And sort of by my junior year, I really admired my prep head coach,
Yeah.
Melissa Pacific. And I just always sort of saw my life heading back to a prep school campus.
Yep. Yeah, I felt the same way, right? I was kind of one of those things where when I got out of college, I think I had that weird moment of like, what am I going to do? And tried to go do a corporate job briefly, and then was like, I don't want to do this, and like
Sure.
got into prep schools, yeah, pretty quickly myself. How did you find out about preps? Because you're from like raised in a non what we would call like us admissions people, right? Like a non-traditional prep market.
Definitely. So I'm originally from Virginia, in like Southern Virginia, and I quickly ran out of options where I was playing boys hockey, and then one year the team that I'd played for said they weren't taking any girls that year,
Yeah,
and I'd been the only girl. And so my dad said, get in the car, and we went up to Montgomery, Maryland. And so I was playing. It was about 3.5 hours each way for practice, and then I would practice with my brother's boys team during the week. He's a
yeah,
couple years older than me, and I was a goalie, so it was awesome. But it was just a challenge to keep that up with the drive.
yeah.
And a coach up there at the time said, "Why don't you look at boarding school?" And so we were very naive in the process. I applied to one school. If I got in, great. And that school was Exeter. So it fortunately worked out, and away I went.
Yeah, it's so interesting for me now, like with what I'm doing. I've seen now so many kids from different markets, right? Like not like again, those not where, I've kid from Oklahoma this year, Texas, Florida. So understanding, like I think for family, I always talk about like this, there's this idea that like prep school's this generic term, right?
Right.
And then as you get into it, understanding like, I mean, there's all these different schools that are going to be the right fit for kids. And Exeter to me is such a unique place, right? Because it's so big and so different than like now the places you've worked at, which obviously we'll talk about.
Yes, I did a bit of a Goldilocks of in my own professional career of very big, very small, and then Berkshire to me is the perfect size. So my
Yeah.
extremes were very extreme. Do you want to get into that or not yet?
Yeah, sure. Well, we can't like I think yeah, I mean you're right. Like if we talk about the prep angle for you, you've kind of you well, just the coaching part, you've been all over.
For sure. So early in my career, I was super fortunate that it was actually my senior year of college. Wasn't quite sure what I was going to do. I was looking at possibly playing professional overseas. Had some options there,
Yeah.
and then my head coach at the time, Dean Jackson, he said, "You should really consider coaching, Marsh. I think you'd be good at it." And I was like,
Yeah.
"Okay, I'll look into it." Toss my resume out, and then was super fortunate that I worked right out of college at RIT Division One with for Scott McDonald. So I learned a ton. Was there for a couple of years, and then the Penn State job opened, and I in that time of my career was like, I want to go Big Ten.
Right.
So why not? Landed that job, learned a lot, and like, gosh, it was really big. And so that in my moment was okay. Maybe I think I'm settling down personally. Was engaged and thought now let's go to prep school. And I decided a little late and landed at Vermont Academy. And that was personally for me too small.
Yeah.
So I went from Big Ten to VA, which was super, super just tiny at the time.
Yep.
And then when the Berkshire job opened up, a couple of my friends had gone here, reached out, they loved it. And one of them, Whit Colbert, said, actually, you should reach out to my former advisor, who
Yep.
happened to be Gene Mayer.
Yep.
Uh, and that was it. That was history. So it was awesome.
Wit's twin Alex was my advisee.
Oh, no way. Very cool.
Yeah, when she was there. Yeah, so I know the Colberts really well. Yeah, so and this is year set how many years now at Berkshire?
8. This is
Year
year
eight.
8.
Yeah. Yeah, I tell right. I mean, for me, I guess for people watching this or listening, right? Like I'm not unbiased in this, right? Like I worked
Sure.
there. I loved it. My son is there. But it is like a really unique place. But for me, what's so interesting about it, and we can talk about this too in terms of hockey, but like I started working at Berkshire in 2004, and it's such a different place now than what the school was then. And I think about for you guys now in terms of, the other part of your job there, working in admissions, like what Berkshire has become now is it's a really, really different animal. And for me, it's, surprising in the most positive ways that like it's grown into now like this highly selective institution where, as a coach, I always tell people this, like, you came from the college world,
Right.
right? And when I'm talking to families, that idea of like how different college and prep school recruiting is, right? Like if you're at Penn State and you see a player and she's good enough, like they're gonna admit her and like she's gonna be on the team. Like at Berkshire, it's not going to work that way, right? And really understanding that process. When you got to VA, did you do admissions as well?
I did. And so I was there for 1 year, but I
Yeah,
really learned a lot. And I learned a lot in that year, especially on the admission front. And then coming into a place like Berkshire, just how to have that background and really like respectfully, like still having to work hard in the summer to help fill
yeah,
a school, and then coming into Berkshire where it's just each year it's been more selective. Uh,
right.
and so how to adjust to that too, recruiting wise, has been it every year I'm learning a new lesson.
Yeah. But what I really think is so interesting about Berkshire and like what you guys do well, and obviously like we've talked about this with students I've had applying there, like selective, but not a place where like I think it's really challenging, right? Because for you guys, it is about trying to find the student who is the right fit for the school, right? And that's obviously the kids who they have to meet the academic standards to find success there. But I think, it's changed so much from when I was doing admissions there. But for you guys now going through this process of, well over 1,000 applications and selecting kids who character, culture are going to be additions to their community, can do well academically, and then can add to athletic programs, like it's an interesting challenge.
Definitely. And there's so as much as it's been so it's become more challenging, at the same time there is a young lady who plays on my team who her dad came to Berkshire in the 90s, and he said, every time he comes back, the buildings are newer, and like Berkshire's getting better, but at the same time, like there's such an intangible quality, and he describes it as like the soul of Berkshire still feels the same.
Yeah,
uh, and I think that even in my time here, I've been able to see that shift, but that feeling and who is attracted to life under the mountain, that's still, it's very personable. People know who they're going to school with, the kids know the faculty, and vice versa. That part really remains true, and that's the Berkshire piece that makes it special, I think.
yeah, no, it is like it's been interesting for me now being on the other end of it, right?
Right.
Like of like when my wife and I went back with Landon, and obviously I've stayed connected to the school over all these years, but like it is so interesting for us to see like, hey, this is physically it's a really different place than when I worked there, right? Like the
Sure.
facilities are ridiculously different. But you're right, like the core and the culture and like what I think what the school represents, and in some ways like arguably the profiles of the students maybe academically have changed or the over the course of time, but like I think you're right. Like it is a place that is going to attract kids who, we used to always say this. I know you guys still say this, like it's not a place where you can hide, right? Like you want to go and like you gotta want to get involved.
Absolutely. And be a part of something that's bigger than yourself. It's
Yeah,
everybody knows you'll see everybody by the end of the week.
yeah. Well, the other thing too, from a hockey standpoint, which I don't know how much people, I get talking about like the history of girls prep hockey. Berkshire was like, and obviously is, but like was one of those first like truly dominant girls prep programs. Like when I got to Berkshire in the early 2000s, was on a run there with Lori Charpentier and things, and
Right.
like the history of the girls hockey program there is truly impressive.
And absolutely. And in my time here of looking back to those women and how they built the success and trying to continue that it's a history program with two Olympians who've come through and multiple players to go on and play at the college level and represent their countries too. So it's been a really cool program to help continue that history.
Yeah, and you would know better than I would, but I don't know that people know, like arguably one of the most influential women in the last however many years in women's hockey, right? Kendall Coyne. I was there when Kendall was there, and like, I mean, it was a sight to see, to watch. She's a woman now, but at that point, that kid play, like she would come out and practice with our boys team a few times, and like it was unbelievable to watch.
For sure. She's the same birth year, so I grew up playing against her.
Yeah.
Uh, but even like for example, like her and then Casey Bellamy, we've got an
Yep.
incoming player coming in from Arizona, and Casey was down there running an event. And I messaged Casey and was like, "Hey, we've got an incoming kid who's going to be there. Would you mind saying hi?" And she, by the end of the day, sent me pictures, and I heard from the kid being like, "Wow, Casey Bellamy wanted to take a picture with me," and she's like, "Oh yeah, no problem. Once a bear, always a
Yep.
bear." And that's so Berkshire, is that even this storied Olympian who people look up to, and she's got a book. She's also the first person to be like, "If you need anything, send me a message. I'm happy to help you throughout your time at Berkshire and beyond." Like, just so she's a human, and it's really cool.
Yeah. No, I like the connection to the school. I feel it as a past faculty member. I no doubt with alums. I see it now with my son now who's finishing his first year. Like there is a yeah, there's a special sort of magic to that place that I think is infectious. And it also, to me, there's a lot of great schools out there, right? But it's always interesting to me, like Berkshire is one of those places that's a quote unquote medium-sized school that feels a lot larger, has these, now a sort of very strong, I think, academic standard and academic reputation, but then also including your girls hockey program, a number of incredibly strong athletic programs. And like it is that pretty unique mix of like, particularly within sort of the medium-sized boarding school world, like there aren't a ton of them.
I agree with you. I always say we're extra medium because we're
Yeah.
425, but even like in a smaller like microcosm way of explaining it to families, like the kids, you'll see your friends and your team, like everybody you want to see in a day, you can see them. By the end of the week, you've seen everybody though. and
Yeah.
and then even from like in speaking with parents, especially like when I had a freshman boy advisee, I got a text from his mom saying, "Have you seen him? I haven't heard from him in 2 weeks." I could go find him the next class free period and be like, "You need to call your mom and
Yeah.
call her tonight. If not, I'm coming to your dorm room." So it's big enough but small enough if you've got to track somebody down.
Yep. And I think, in some ways, more broadly now, the challenge for you is, in my humble opinion, right? Like, I think New England girls prep hockey is in some ways like what I like. I graduated from prep school in the late 90s, right? At a point where all of us graduated, but 9 guys were seniors. A bunch of us went on to play Division I college hockey. A bunch of us went to play Division III college hockey and stepped out of prep school and stepped into lineups. Like it's to me, that's what New England girls prep hockey is now, right? And it's like, so I ask, I guess for you, how much have you seen, or has it felt like over your time now getting on a decade coaching? Like to me, it seems like New England girls prep hockey was always good, and they always talked about it like continually getting better. And it feels like to me, I don't know whether it's the last 5 years or the last decade, like it's reached this sort of other level of what that league is like now.
I agree with you. And that's the cool thing of, I think, women's sports in general, and particularly women's hockey. It's really it's growing at like a meteoric sort of rate where it's taking off at a really cool time. And I love, like, as a woman who's grown up in this sport, even being told I couldn't play on a boys team to now
Yeah.
there are professional women. We've got alums playing in a professional women's league, and that's their job. Like, how
Yeah.
special. And that's not a huge amount of time. So for that, I think what it's done in New England prep is that everyone, like, there isn't an easy game on our schedule. And that's something too. If we start the season saying, hey, it's playoff hockey all season, you can't take a game off because our league is that much better. So I think that's great. And the parity is awesome. And just the competitiveness. And I think maybe, 15 years ago, maybe there were only a few prep schools that were doing active recruiting. Everybody recruits. And so that's really important in the women's game is that girls high school hockey in New England prep. It's just it's such a better product across the board. So that's really it's a good time.
Yeah, no, I remember that I will say when I was at Berkshire, when I was there, right, for those whatever 12 years, the girls team was really good, but it would be whatever, their 30 game schedule. There was going to be 8, 10 of those games. They were going to be pressed, and then there were going to be some lopsided days. And now, like, that has really gone. And I think I saw this coaching, and I'm wondering for you too now on the girls' side, seeing it like, I think it's really challenging in a league like yours for kids coming out of playing really high level youth hockey where they've played whatever, 60, 80 games, getting into this mindset of like, okay, right, we've got whatever it's going to be, 30 or 35, but like we can't afford to lose more than like typically it's like 8, right? Like 7 or 8 games is going to put us in a really perilous position around making the playoffs. And like that transition for kids, I always found like was challenged. Like they're capable of playing, but making the adjustment to that kind of environment is I think often underestimated by kids and families.
For sure. And that's good.
Yeah,
Because and even I had a conversation with one of my freshmen this year, in a quintessential way. She was getting some playing time, but she was like, how do I get more? And I was like, you've got to get stronger. You've got to, and I gave her tangibles. And I said, when you came to Berkshire, she was certainly the best player on her team her entire life. And I was like, were you expecting to be the best defenseman on the team? And she said, yes. And I said, well,
yeah,
you've got a junior on the team committed to Brown. Do you think you should be better than her right now? And she was like, oh, I didn't think of that. So that's where, you're coming here and playing. I always have freshmen on my team. I think it's very important for them to see that and to feel being young and then growing up in the program, because when they get to college hockey, it's inevitable. It's very few and far between that freshman year you're going to be entering a college lineup and playing right away. So I think it's healthy to have that moment and to learn and to grow into the role that you want.
yeah. Well, and I think as much as I've seen, girls and women's hockey has grown and exploded, right? I think probably in a different, I would maybe argue a better way, right? Like there's still not all of these multiple various paths like you see on the boys' side now, right?
Right.
Like there's some, but to me, what continues to make, I think, New England prep school hockey for girls in particular is while the game has grown, I hear this all the time from the parents of the girls I'm working with in a lot of places, like post that kind of U14, U15 year, certainly. Um, it's still like a lot of what you ran into when you were playing of like there aren't a lot of great options for me to be able to continue to pursue the game at a high level and have an academic experience that I'm going to be excited about, right? Like it's that
Yeah.
compromise. I get that call all the time from families like what you lived of like hey, one of these two things doesn't work, right? Like we've got this great hockey option that she can play on, but it doesn't line up with what she needs academically, or she's in this great school, but we got to drive 5 hours for her to play hockey now. And to me, New England girls prep hockey is the place where all of that is provided to kids in a unique way, and the level of play is, shockingly high.
Absolutely. And the time that you get back of just
I
walking to
say that all the
places,
time to families. Yeah.
it's so, instead of being in the car, however many times you're going to practice and all, at most it's from the furthest dorm on campus at Berkshire, it's 7 minutes to walk to the rink. And in those 7 minutes, that's walking kind of slow. So you've got
Yep.
some time to not just, go shoot more pucks or get a lift in, but also it's not compromising doing homework in the car, things like that, because I think a lot of kids have to do that before they get to boarding school and trying to manage all of that. But then also they get time back to be a kid and hang on to that high school experience a little bit more instead of saying, I can't, I have hockey. Like you can go to prom and senior prom. Like that's just one of those things where you can be an and kind of kid and pursue really high athletics, really high academics, and still enjoy the quintessential parts of high school.
Well, and I think too, what's maybe often overlooked and maybe like you're not maybe giving yourself enough credit is like I think about like I look around the New England Girls Prep League and look at the coaches in that league. Their background in hockey knowledge, like obviously is one part of it, but also I think they understanding, as you've talked about, like right, like for the girls who are going to come and play for you, most of them have aspirations of like they want to play college hockey, right? And I think every parent sits there and goes like, okay, well, like we just put her in the best leagues we can put her in, and then it's just going to happen, right? And like the reality of that is it's not. And like to me, the level of coaching and knowledge within like the coaching ranks of New England girls prep hockey is like I'm constantly, I feel like when I'm talking to a lot of these girls coaches, intimidated by their knowledge of hockey, having done it as long as I have. I'm still like I had this conversation with one of the coaches the other day where I was like, I'm pretty sure you've forgotten more about hockey than I know, but like, it is impressive.
Cool. Well, thank you. I've been really fortunate to be surrounded by some awesome coaches and learn from a lot. And we still do the Diarco 1VO. I know a
Yeah,
couple of your drills, so we're all borrowing at the end of the day. But as much as we
yeah.
can teach these kids before, with so many of them, the goal is college hockey. Even though we do have some fun surprises along the way. Like for example, we have a senior this year who she came in as a multi-sport student athlete and hockey was her primary. And so, but she also is a lacrosse goalie. So we're going through her college process, navigating both at the same time. And she was getting some kicks of Division 1, Division 3 for hockey. And then the call date happened for lacrosse, and she got a dozen Division 1 calls, including like 1201, uh,
Yeah,
the first time they could call her. Uh, and then she said the next morning, like, Coach, I think I should be a Division 1 lacrosse goalie. And I was like, I
I
think
think you should too. Yeah.
you should too. So those are some of the cool things is when you keep these opportunities open, and then there are so many coaches and college counsel, like so many layers of support where you can figure out what you want to be in high school instead of just locking in right away. But she did end up being our MVP in hockey too. So, you can be
Yeah, who knows?
an and kind of kid, which is cool.
Yeah, how much for like now for you and over the last decade has, I don't know if I want to say the word pressure, but obviously it's really evolved now. And I think the reality of the situation is like as good as the New England Prep League is and as much exposure and development as you're going to get, there still is this question of like the need to play out of season, right? Like, and like, so what is fall hockey or like what's that look like for your girls in the last couple of years?
For sure. And that's something like in the women's game, there are fewer than 40 Division 1 women's programs. And I think
Right.
that's startling for people to like, oh, that's it. That's it. Like, it's really hard
Well,
to
my
be a
next
Division.
question after that was going to be like, we'll talk about that. Like, some of the best programs, the academic standards to get admitted to those schools is also part of it. But yeah, sorry to interrupt.
No, and that's where like helping these kids understand and frame what they want, and to the goal of college hockey as opposed to like Division 1 or bust. And it's like,
Right.
well, just work hard. And I, in my playing career, I played both because my Division 1 program got cut, and
Mhm.
so that's where it's not that much different from Division 1 to Division 3. But nonetheless, bit of a tangent. And so I think framing it for these kids of you've got to work hard and earn your success. And then that also means not just hockey, but academically and making sure that
Right.
you're getting the test scores and you're performing well in school to keep those doors open for the Ivies, the NESCACs, things like that. But yes, so I think that's a little bit touching on your question, but help bring me
Yeah.
back.
Yeah, no, I was wondering for you, like now, one of the big changes, and you
Oh,
guys
the
have this,
fall.
yeah, unbelievable facility, right, where the ice is now down in the fall, right? And but like, I love the fact that there are still a lot, I would imagine the majority of your girls are playing multiple sports, but supplementing that, like they're playing throughout they have the opportunity to skate and play throughout the fall.
For sure. All right. So, split season. How it works
Yeah,
here at Berkshire is that so as you mentioned, like we had the ice down the fourth day of classes this year, and each year it's a little bit earlier. And
right.
it's such a benefit, and we're so grateful that our team can get it done here, where the kids have access every day during the fall, and they learn how much ice is too much ice. Where generally it's like 6 to 8 a.m., 6 to 8 p.m. They can skate during those days. Sometimes it's specific, like power skating, girls only, co-ed, things like that, but
Yep.
there's ample opportunity to work on your craft and like with an outside coach, things like that. And then we can do three or fewer of our own kids. So you've got that to supplement. It's not like you're going 3 months before the season not touching the ice. And
Right.
then additionally, we do still have girls who will play split season with outside programs, and that's predominantly on Sundays. And so I'll make a spreadsheet, and families will go in and populate like where their kids are playing, if they can help carpool, how many seats they have open, where they're driving, things like that. And it's really a testament to our local families who really go above and beyond to help other players pursue those opportunities too. But then, if there's a big tournament that is during winter break or something, then it's our outside, like our families from, we've got a family from Nova Scotia that will come down during the tournaments and say, we've got everybody
Yep.
because you've been doing the Sundays during the fall. So it all works out. Uh, and players who are from further away have been jumping in with local families and vice versa. It's a lot less than what families are actually doing right now.
Well, and I also love, I think as like we talked about before, right? Like there's this misconception that like development happens in games, right? And this notion of like, well, we're only going to play like, well, 35 games and then she's going to play 10 or 15 games in the fall. Like that's more than enough, right? And that idea of like having access to ice, getting touches, being around coaches, and like using that fall to develop for I think is the best and I think for people understanding that like the league is so strong, like you will get more than enough exposure playing those New England prep games. Like you don't necessarily need to be going chasing showcase events every weekend in the fall.
And I think what my background, what it's lended me is that having come from the college coaching world into prep, our prep model is so closely mirrored to the NCAA model where you have two
Yep.
games a week and then you've got 4 days of practice. So that's what it looks like in college. The only difference is that we've gone to do two practices Monday, Tuesday, and then a game on Wednesday, and then Thursday, Friday practice, and a game on Saturday. So we've split it. Where like college, you typically have practice Monday through Thursday, and then your games are on Friday and Saturday. So
Yeah.
it's the same ratio and it's the same amount of games that you're playing, but now you've got your fall to develop. Where if you're going and playing all of these games, you're not necessarily touching the puck a ton of times, as
Yeah.
opposed to a skills practice or intensive sort of work.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's to your point, right? Like it puts the onus on the player of like, look, if you want to do this, at a place like Berkshire, there's no excuse, right? Like
Right.
you have this unbelievable facility where the ice is there and it's available to you. You have these great coaches. As you mentioned, you've got an academic program that if you can do well in it with the college guidance and you play well in this league, it's all there in front of you. So like now it's a question of like, I think that's, I talk to a lot of kids about that. I know I'm sure you do too, of like,
Mm.
there's this image of like, right, as you said, Division 1 or bust, and I have to do that and I want that. And I think prep school provides them this idea of like, right, are you sure you really want that? Because like
Right.
it's a different kind of life than, what you may want.
And I think one of the really cool things is that when you're in these environments and you're in ninth grade and you are seeing how hard the juniors and seniors, like this year we do have two juniors who are already committed uh, to Division 1 schools, and then we do have some committed players Division 1, Division 3 in the senior class. And so for
Yeah,
these freshmen to say, I want to do this and be that, and I say, okay, this player who's committed, she was in the gym, and I'll look and be like, when did you go to the gym this week? And they'll be like, okay, well, I went Monday, I went
yeah,
Thursday, and Sunday morning. And I said, when did you shoot pucks? And they rattle off all the days they were shooting pucks. And then I look at the freshmen and I said, what did you do this week? And they're like, oh, I didn't realize that she was doing all of this. And it's like, well, that's surround yourself by the greatness of where they're headed, because they didn't do it necessarily their freshman year either until, the first 2 weeks of school. And they're starting to recognize these patterns when you intentionally point it out. And then that's where the beautiful part is, bringing those upperclassmen to say, hey, don't go to the gym by yourself. Go find a freshman, go
yeah.
find a sophomore, and bring them, because that's what someone did for you. So that's the really cool part of not just playing with your age group, but playing, as a younger player, and then an older player, bringing that next generation up with you.
Yeah, well, and to your point about playing with I talk to both the boys and girls that I work with of I understand the rationale and the logic and why all of the stuff in USA Hockey or Hockey Canada as well, right, is like this age restricted model, right, of U15, U16, however they're going to go.
Sure.
Um, the reality of that is like that's not college hockey, right? And so for most kids, to your point of like trying to replicate what that college experience is without having that prep school experience, it is so interesting to me that some of those kids are going to go to college and like that's the first time they're going to play non-age restricted hockey of like, and to me it's got to be so hard. And that idea of you're right of like as a dominant 14-year-old stepping into the New England prep school team and saying like, all right, like that's a dominant 18-year-old, right? And like I've got to deal with that today. Is it's what it does to accelerate kids' process is so different.
And just, I agree with you. And to have those live examples, like I've got a young lady on the team that her progression throughout the years of she at U14 was a goal scorer, and she's
Yeah,
one of our senior captains this year. And so her first year, I think she only scored four goals as a freshman, a true freshman. And then, incrementally went up, and then her junior year, 20 goals. And
yeah,
so for those freshmen who are like so frustrated halfway point when we're doing our check-ins, being like, I only have 3 goals. And I'm like, well, who are you looking at? Who do you want to work to be like? And they're like, her. And I said, cool, she finished her freshman year with 4 goals. So you're so in it right now. You need to zoom out and figure out what she's doing in order to get there. It's I think a very underrated part of our model.
yeah. Well, and I think the other part of it too, you mentioned the lacrosse player. I've had this conversation with my son, but with a lot of families I work with, like what I love about the prep model is with all of these experiences and all of the development, but as you said, like the time to do other things. Like I think for kids being in a position where, okay, at your junior year or your senior year, that Division 1 college offer comes through, or the Division 3 college offer comes through, and being in a position to be able to say like, hey, I want to do this and I'm excited about it because I had this experience in prep school at Berkshire where like in addition to playing hockey, I got to try all of these other things. And I don't love anything as much as I love hockey. Like, so I
Right.
know this is what I want to do versus I think for other kids being in this route of like, you get to 17 or 18 and it's like, great, you have these options. And it feels almost like, well, I guess I have to keep going down this road because I've never done anything else, right? Like, so
Right.
this is who I am.
It's almost like a soft toss, where we have one of our other senior captains this year came in a little bit like probably 51% more lacrosse and
Yeah.
hockey, and
Yep.
was playing Hockey Canada, or sorry, Lacrosse Canada, like that caliber U18,
Yep.
U20 team and things like that. And so she came here her junior year, and she actually committed Division 1 lacrosse, and then in the spring of her junior year said, Coach, I'd like to have a meeting with you. And I was like, okay, so we've got this meeting. And she's like, after the hockey season, she was, I think I really love hockey more. What can I do? And I was like, okay,
Yep.
end of your junior year, and you want to see what's out there, and this is what, if you decommit from lacrosse, you've got to figure out like what your options are, and if you want to bet on you, like you don't have to make me happy, you don't have to make your
Right.
parents happy, like this is your life. What do you want to do? And I'll support you. So she decommitted from Division 1 lacrosse, and then we just went to work as a school here to support her. And then now she'll play at Amherst next year, Division 1, or sorry, Division 3, with a tremendous academic opportunity as well. And she, even at the end of the season in our exit meeting, she had said, I'm really excited to be a freshman again.
Yeah.
Uh, and it's so cool that she bet on herself, changed her path completely going into the summer of her junior year. A little tricky on the recruiting front, but why not? And look at how it's panned out. That's such a success story.
Yeah. So for you, you mentioned like can I know, but like have you felt like in the last I don't know, since you've been coaching, right, has the composition of your rosters changed? Like I feel like I'm getting calls now from girls from where I think it was a little bit maybe slower on the girls side up until where like girls from New England went to play New England prep hockey. I think the boys side had gotten a little bit more national or global, but like now I'm starting to see that also on the girls side. Are you seeing that in your rosters as well, or like the kids who are interested?
I do. I mean, there's certainly, I think there are families that want to look at boarding school, like New England boarding schools. I do think that there are families that want to look at hockey academies. Like that's certainly
Right.
a newer piece to the equation, but I still think that families who are looking at prep, like New England prep, it's a different product, if you will.
Yeah.
So I think that's changed a little bit, but then I think COVID did some interesting things with who was looking at New England prep for hockey and things like that as well. One of the trends that I did see on the girl side picking up steam after COVID is I do think that a lot more girls are reclassing. Uh,
Yeah.
where I think boys, it's almost a given that they're leaning on a reclass. Girls before COVID, I don't think they did. But now, my class right after COVID, I had 6 freshmen coming in that year. 5 of them chose to reclass, and it was such a drastic change.
All of the girls I worked with this year, I just want to make sure I'm like thorough in this. Yeah, all of the girls I worked with this year reclassed. You're right.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, so I think that's growing. It does sort of tee up kind of what I was thinking about next to see. I wouldn't expect that you're going to be able to answer this, but it comes up a lot with that question of like this proposed NCAA rule change. I think it's great for kids, right? And I think in for girls hockey, to me, it only feels like it's going to create an extra year for kids to play college hockey, right? Do you think that's going to change at all, like with girls wanting to reclass, or it shouldn't really impact them as long as they're graduating at 19, right?
I think that most of the girls are already gonna graduate. Even my reclass kids, the older ones, they will be fine with that rule of as long as they're not 19. Like I think the girls are gonna be okay. I think it'll only
Right.
be beneficial. And I'm looking to actually like our COVID class of 22, the class of 22 from COVID, like the Berkshire class of 22, they're now in like either their senior or their post grad year
Their
in
fifth
college
year, yeah.
hockey. And they're, the examples we have in that class, they're just taking off. So,
Right.
I think it's a good thing. And I think, especially on the women's side, there aren't the same opportunities post college hockey, or not the same number of opportunities. So another year to play hockey, who wouldn't want that?
Yeah. Yeah, no, and I think I've had lots of questions actually in the last couple of days from parents
Of
and
course.
about like what this looks like. And I feel like on the girls and the women's side, it feels like to me this is awesome and it's going to create another year for you to play hockey at a really high level, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's going to be the impact of the program. The boys' side is going to be a whole different thing in terms of how that all shakes out. But no, I do think it's a hugely beneficial thing. You mentioned it before too, with the limited number of Division One programs, but then also now you look at like who are those programs, right? Like at the top of Division One or the top of Division Three, those are schools where like you're going to have to continue to do well academically throughout your time in high school to have those options. So yeah, can you talk a little bit about just how that works for you guys with your placement and support of the college office there, and what that looks like for your girls who are going to have some of those options and opportunities to play college hockey? How are they supported beyond just you?
Sure. Well, it's definitely a team effort. And I think the conversations start with kids of when they're ready to talk about college hockey, and there's sort of a natural when they hear about one of their teammates, older teammates committing or going
Right.
on a visit, that's where they're like, wait, when should we talk about this? And so I'll start with the meeting with the individual, and then I'll say chat with your parents if they want to be in on this call, let me know, or if you want to do another one after, we can do that as well. And then you've already heard me talk about spreadsheets before. I'm a big
Yeah.
spreadsheeter. So each kid will have a separate spreadsheet, and we work through like their wish list. And then as they're getting older, it evolves with then what places are expressing that reciprocal interest. And as they get older and the contact dates and everything open up, it's not me saying you are or aren't a Division One player. It's whether or not you're getting the calls.
Right.
Um, and so like ensuring that they've got the exposure and the communication piece, they're very organized. And then the next step in that progression is then they will have an assigned college counselor at Berkshire, and then they'll walk into those meetings. And I've got a little bit of a reputation where the girls hockey players come in with this spreadsheet and they're feeling really just empowered to be like, okay, I'm not starting from ground zero. I've got something to start with, and then it just takes off from there. And each process is different, as you know, but we're really fortunate that between that early work that we do together and then working with our college counseling office, every kid lands where they should.
Yeah. Well, you hit the nail on the head too. I deal with this on my end, right? Of like that, I get that question a lot from families of like, well, she wants to go to this school and play. Like, and I'm like,
Great.
but great. Like, when I think about her ability to play there, or you think about her ability to play there, it doesn't really matter, right? Like, we gotta, you and I have had this conversation about kids, like, right? Like, hey, it's great that she wants to come, but like, if, can she play there? And like that reality, I think for kids at the college hockey level is really different. But like, um, yeah, I think the support that they're going to get at Berkshire and other places around, like, as you said, like, hey, there's a lot of different ways we're going to be able to create opportunities for you, and it's not just on the rink. Is I continually go back to, this, like, youth hockey is a different animal, right? And for lots of reasons, I feel like parents and kids get very myopic going through that process and getting back into this environment where, like, hey, there's all these opportunities and it doesn't just have to be about hockey, but you're in an environment where you're going to have this ability to develop and play at arguably, right? I would argue like the highest level of hockey in the US, like that league. It is interesting, I think, for me as I work with families to see them go through that transition and understand it as we go through the admissions process.
For sure. And I've worked with a couple players in the past that have chosen differently too.
Yeah,
Um, where I'm thinking of two separate players where one of them absolutely like nearly got a perfect score in the ACT and then was looking at Ivies and NESCACs. And one of the Ivy conversations, she asked the coach, "Will I play?" And they said, "No. Expect that if you come here, you will we will not guarantee that you will dress in a single game in 4 years. But we
Yep.
love you as a person and you'd really make our program better." And then got off that call thinking, I thought I wanted this.
Yeah.
And then the reality is I could go to this NESCAC school and they said I can play. And I'm
Yeah, I
like,
can
it's
play.
it's real. Like which one? And you don't have to sacrifice your academics. You've done the work to really open up both of these doors. So you pick your path. And I've had one player who said, "Great, I want to play a ton." So she did, and she's having a great experience at the Division 3 level. And then conversely, I had a goalie who said, "You know what? No, I'd rather go play Division 1, dream school." And then goalie got hurt, and she took
Hey,
her
you never
opportunity,
know.
and ran with it. So it's cool that they're empowered with the information, and then they can choose.
Yeah. So lying near the end here, tell me like what's your team look like for next year? Like how's your roster? Are you excited about it? And then also the question I always get from this is like it's crazy to me that we're already starting this process for the fall of 27, right? But
Yes.
yeah, what do you think your needs are going to be as you head into that process?
Sure. I mean, I've got a Rolodex going in
Yeah,
my head of, I know what we're graduating, I know what we need, and doing that math all the time. So I'm super excited about the incoming class that we have next year. Uh, we went, we graduated 7 this year, so we'll have a good balance of some freshmen, some really smart, talented, like cool kids, and then a 10th grader coming in as well, who's just gonna add to the lineup right away. So I'm super excited. We went sort of all over the place with like a good core from the New England area, and then got a little creative too. One of our incoming players, I did mention Arizona, and then
yeah,
we've actually got a player coming in from France too.
awesome.
Um, so super excited about that. And yeah, so that's Berkshire next year. We've got a really awesome returning core. So that's something that we're going to really look to the older kids for some great leadership, setting that foundation and make another run at it. So that'll be great. So that's next year. Definitely pumped. And then class of 27, we're graduating a smaller class, but really impactful. Where, as I mentioned, like we've got our goalies committed, and then one of our top defensemen as well in that class too. So
Yeah,
small but mighty. We're looking to them to bring a ton on and off the ice.
yeah, great.
Cool.
Awesome. Thank you so much for doing this.
All right, Brad. Thank you. As always, it's a pleasure.
Yeah, we'll talk again soon, and I'll sure I'll bump into you somewhere on campus here.
All right, looking forward to it. And as always, go Bears.
Go Bears. Thank you.
All right, see ya.